Hello again. Today I'm going to talk about Superman 2 and my films from childhood memory, which is something as a series I've got I don't do very often. It's just films I watched as a child or as a teenager, some things that influenced me that actually are just films that I've always an affection for, and they probably have influenced me in ways I could never really place. Because there's lots of films you watch as a kid that just fall away and you think, oh yeah, I did watch that. That was something I watched at some point. But there's other ones that stick with you. And they're films that you keep in your head. And Superman 2 was one of those films. I think it was one of the first films I remember seeing in the cinema. I know I'd seen other films in the cinema, but I don't remember seeing them. The sad thing is, you're probably there, you probably went, oh, but I don't remember them. They're there, but they're not like, not concrete in my head if I haven't seen them. I mean, the first one I probably do remember is Pinocchio, but that is vague. I just remember it being scary, you know. So there's that. This one I remember very clearly. I remember going to see this one and loving it. It was just great. I'd seen the original Superman on the TV at that point. It came out on TV before this new one came out in the cinema. Obviously advertising a new Superman film, as they do, because if a new film in the 80s, if it was a sequel, the first one would premiere on TV just before the next one came out. That was just how they did it. Because it usually took a little while for a film to come out on TV after the cinema release. This is not nowadays where a film's on streaming a month after it's been released in cinema. This was like years. They wanted to make sure if you want to see the film, you see it in the cinema. You know, because that's the only place to see it for a long time. How times have changed. And I wonder why cinema attendance is down. Yeah, because that's the one of the reasons why. So, I saw this as a child. I loved it. I've always loved it. It's my favourite Superman film. It's a Superman film that I always go back to as being the best Superman film. You see that the original had a really good first two thirds. Like Richard Donner gets a lot of praise for Superman 2, even though he didn't direct it. I'll get into that. But the first two thirds Superman are really good. They're very entertaining. You've got the early part in Krypton. You've got the Superman growing up. You've got him going into the city and becoming Superman to the public. All of that's good. And that's basically the first half of the movie. You get introduced to Clark Kent. You get introduced to Lois Lane, to Lex Luthor. Gene Hackman's hilarious as Luthor, but the plots around Luthor are awful. Especially the first one. First one, he's going to blow up. So even though he realises there's this new person called Superman involved, his plan to blow up the San Andreas Fault with a nuclear weapon feels kind of threadbare at best to start with. And it's like, well, how are we not going to get caught for this? So, So that kind of feels like we've got a plot that's not worthy of your lead character. You have a villain who is, but a plot that's not. And that's the big problem with third part of that film is there's this whole thing of he finds kryptonite that actually kills Superman. And that's a nice scene, that's a nice threatening scene. But then there's this whole thing about two rockets, one going one way, going the other way. He has to decide which one to stop first. And it's fine. It's not embarrassing, but even as a kid, it's like, this is not that great an ending. And there's a whole bit at the end where Superman turns the world backwards. Turns the world back in rotation to make time go backwards, which makes no sense. Like, at all. It's a nice visual idea, but it doesn't really work as a... Even as a kid, you're like, does that work? And as an adult, you're going, that's just lame. That's a lame ending. And, I mean, it's that thing is, the emotion's there. The sense he's trying to save Lois Lane after she died. But it means basically it's a cheat. You know, It's a cheat to get around a plot point that you want to have. So the first one has like first two thirds terrific, last third not so great. And even whenever I rewatch it, which isn't often, but every so often I'll get into the mood to watch Superman the movie, and it's always the same. First two thirds this is great, then last third it's like it's a bit of a trudge. you get some nice bits when the earthquake hits, but it's still not the best material. So during that production, Donner and the producers fell out with each other pretty badly. So, and they were meant to do two films together, and because the director and producers were not getting on, they brought in Richard Lester to be a go-between for them. So Lester was in post-production on Cuba at the time. So basically what he'd do was he would do 3 days on Cuba, like doing the editing and give the editor instructions, do this, do that, do this. And then he'd come over for like 4 days and be the person in charge of communication between the two parties. So another day or two they'd have to get on with it or wait till Lester come back to deal with the problem. And so he came in and basically did that for the second half of that production. There was Andrei Titov was also involved with the second unit as well. So they brought a lot of people in who were experienced, because Donner was not that experienced a director. He did a lot of TV, he'd done the Omen, but he hadn't done anything as big as this before. So they brought in directors who knew the score, how to do certain things. So Lester came in and helped them out and basically went in and just said, this person's saying that, this person's saying that. So it was an unworkable situation between these two parties. And at a certain point, the film was no budget, said, okay, we'll finish the first film. The second film, we've got like 40% shot here. It goes up and down. Some people say 70%, but it's like you look at it and think, because there was a Donner cut later on where they brought back all the Donner material that he'd shot, and you realise there wasn't that much that was shot for the second film. There were bits that were shot. They shot bits of things, and there was other bits that weren't shot, and it really was, and there was some stuff that would have been reshot, probably. They would have looked at it and gone, that doesn't work, so let's change it and do something different with it. Because you just, I'll get to the Donner cut later. Right. So the film was kind of like half done, second film, but they hadn't done the big action scenes. And so when the first film came out, it was a success. Donner and the producers were still not talking, and Donner said he would only come back if they get rid of one of the producers, and they said, we're not doing that. So Donner was let go, and it was like, it's one of those things you just look at and it was like, it was never going to work out. The two parties didn't go on. It was like, they made an attempt to bring him back. He didn't come back. No one can assume he's going to come back in the first place. So it's like, who could come in now and do the film? So they brought in Richard Lester to do it. Richard Lester had already done the 3 and 4 Musketeers for the Falcons, to the producers. That was a big success. He had gone on and done some other films, like, I mean, he had a really good career before that. He'd done like the Beatles films. He'd done Petulia. He'd done How to Win a War. He'd done Bed Sitting Room. He'd done a lot of films, some successful, some not, but he was a commercial director who could be trusted but also was eccentric and did his own thing. So he had a bad period, then he came back, he did Three Musketeers, Juggernaut, Robert and Marion, and Cuba. He'd done Butch and Sundance the early years. So he was like a director who could go and do different things. He wasn't stuck to one genre. He liked to work, and he wasn't stuck to one type of film. He liked humour in his film, but he also could do serious film when he needed to. So he was brought in to finish the film off. It was understanding, like he was in the first one because the Salkinds owed him money, so they had to pay him the money they owed him plus pay him for this other thing. So when the second film came around, they said to him, "Look, will you come in and finish this thing for us? Since you were the guy who was in charge of keeping the peace between the two parties in the first place." And Lester had brought in how to finish the first film because they didn't have an ending to the first film. He said, "We'll take the ending from the second film and put it into the first film, and we'll figure out the second film later." And they were like, "Okay, let's do that." So it was quite good. It immediately went to the stupid ending from the second film, but in the first film, because if you see Donner cut the ending of the second film and his cut, stupid, it's monumentally awful. So Lester was brought in, and Donner was angry that Lester never called him to tell him he was taking over the film. When it was, well, he was a peacekeeper between you and the producers. It's like, maybe he just thought you were behaving like a dick. Or a prima donna. I mean, it's like, the assumption there is he was taking sides, and it really was like, he just was like, okay, I'll help you finish this bloody film off. So Lester came in to help finish the film, and he reshot certain things. He did not have Gene Hackman. Gene Hackman had shot his stuff from the first film, during the first film, and wasn't going to come back to shoot anymore since he did not like the Salkinds, and he liked Donner, so he didn't come back. He came back for 4, which was the worst Superman film, when the Salkinds weren't involved. Then a lot of the cast were very loyal to the original director who cast them, but Lester came in and just worked with them. They would do for anyone else. Lester was always good with actors. He did not coddle them, but he worked with them to try and make the thing work. So he came in. He actually brought his own writers in. Like, they asked the writers of the first one to come back and help them finish off this film, and they said no, they're loyal to Donner. And so Lester came in, brought in his own writers, and they just looked at what they had, looked at what was planned already, looked at what would work and what would no longer work, and then planned around what they'd shot and what the idea was. And essentially, at that point, Lester brought in his own ideas and his own style. He shot a new opening. He shot the romance between Clark Kent and Lois Lane, which, if you've seen Robin and Marion or Petulia, or seen some of the bits of the Musketeers that aren't played for laughs, he's actually really good at romance, like genuine romance or romance that's fading or is sad. He's actually good at that, even though he's a satirist. Like, he understands what humans are. And the romance in this one feels a lot more like a Lester film that's less funny than anything Donner ever did. So there's a lot of stuff in here that they say it's Richard Donner Superman 2, and it's like, no, so much as Richard Lester. I mean, he came in and he added the stuff with Zod and others going into a town and then going to the city and fighting in the city. He added a lot of satire. He just brought in a mix that was different from what Donner did. Donner brought in the sincerity, but Lester brought in a kind of much more world-weary elements. I mean, there was already some humour in the first one, but the humour was at a certain comic book level. And there was some cynical jabs in the first one, but the second one it brought up a lot more, and it has a kind of a sense of just more of the absurdity of the whole situation, but while having the sincerity at the same time. And I've got to say, I think the film would have been as good if Donner had done it, to be honest. I think it would have been a bit more po-faced and silly. I'll get to Donner cut. But Lester brought in a lot of his style. He played up the kind of humour of Clark Kent, the cover story, and how he embraces the cover story. Like, Superman learns to enjoy being Clark Kent. He understands the pain of being this guy who no one takes seriously, and how he needs to be that if he's got all these powers. And he plays up the enjoyment of Superman being Clark Kent. Like, he has fun being Clark Kent at times. And it also plays up the idea that Clark Kent and Superman are the same person. They have the same ideals. It's two sides of the same person, ultimately. The heroic side and the weak side. It's almost like Jekyll and Hyde, but it's an idealistic Jekyll and Hyde. And he just plays up this in a way that's obviously a bit more biting, but it's also fun. Because it plays the sincerity of the Christopher Reeve version of Superman and Clark Kent as well. But also he builds a lot of sequences. He builds the early sequence with the Eiffel Tower, which I've always really enjoyed. That the whole thing with just the idea of these terrorists in Eiffel Tower that screw up with a nuclear bomb. Superman has to save the day, which ends up causing an explosion in space, which frees the villains from their prison in the Phantom Zone, allows them to come to Earth, and creates the situation that will revolve from there. Basically, after that, Lois and Clark are sent out to do a piece on like scam artists and the tourist trade, and at that point, Lois starts to think, wait a minute, when things happen, Clark's never around. When Superman appears, are they the same person? And she sees him without his glasses for a second, and she sees a resemblance, and is like, she's kind of suspicious. And at least in one of the best scenes in the film, which is, it's something that was always planned, but the way they did in this film was something that always stuck in my mind, because it's the best way to do a sequence like this, which is like, she's sure he's Superman, so she puts herself in danger to trap him and to reveal himself, and he doesn't. What he does is he's clever, and he's finding ways to act as Clark Kent to find ways to protect her, so she doesn't die, but doesn't reveal himself. And it's a really clever sequence, hugging down this river and him doing things. There's pratfalls, there's also the seriousness. And if this film gets perfectly, the seriousness between the pratfalls and the actual intent. And which was one of the things I really like the film is there is a really good balance between the kind of absurdity of the situation and the genuineness of the characters. This is the best mix that was ever going to get in Superman for that. Which is why I think it's a perfect Superman film, even though it's a mess of the production. But what came out still works. So he has to try and he's clever there, and then he makes a mistake which tells her he is Superman. He trips over and it hangs into the fire and it's not burnt, and it's like, and it's obviously a subconscious thing going on there, and that's very human. It's very normal. It's the way human beings are. Like they're always trying to hide what they desire and all that. And Lester plays it serious, and it's a Lester sequence, and it's very much the way he would shoot a normal sequence. And a lot of the romance is played off like that, where it's like there is a sense of the sweetness of the romance. Like he's not making jabs at this, but also when he goes outside the romance to the three Kryptonians arriving on Earth, first attacking a small town, not realising how big the population is. They take the time to find their powers. So the first half is Superman falling in love, and at the same time the Kryptonians arrive and they're discovering what the powers actually are. They take it all out in a small town and eventually realise that the cities are all over the place, so they can conquer everywhere. But it takes them a while, which is something I think the purists are probably like, oh, they should understand that immediately. It's like, no, they're just out of the Phantom Zone. They come from society where it's a centralised government and it's not that many people. They land in a small place and they think it's a population that's controlled, rather than this is just a chaotic world which they enter into, and they're just dealing with people with just weird ideas and silliness, and they've been pompous and straight ahead, and they're just facing off against life and not handling it well. We're handling basically like fascists, which basically will destroy you. And that brings a lot of humour. I mean, but as a kid I loved all this stuff, and even as grown up, it's like, this is still very enjoyable. Now I watched this on my projector, so I could see a bigger screen version of it, and it really plays well on the big screen. It's one of those films that loses something when you see it on a small screen, because you have the sequences in the second half of the film where Superman's fighting the Kryptonians in the city. It's still some of the best superhero action ever, and it's it's something you lose a lot of when you're watching TV. You just lose the scale of it all and the details of it all, and just the sense of momentum, the momentum of this thing happens and this thing happens and this thing happens. Which is one thing that there's a big difference between watching a film on TV and watching it in the cinema. In the cinema, there's a sense of momentum as you're locked in for 2 hours. In TV, you can stop and start and you can pick holes in things. And you don't have the momentum of a big screen experience, also where certain images have more importance on the big screen than they would on the small screen. So certain things have more of an influence on how you take in the information. And this film really needs a big screen to truly work. It works really well on the small screen, but it doesn't work the same way. So Lester brought a lot of stuff. He brought the romance to this film, which I think people forget. A lot of the things people remember are from the Lester stuff. The romance was a Lester thing. It was planned, but they didn't shoot much of it. If you look at the Donner cut, not much of it was actually there, and they had to go and use stuff from the Lester cut and certain things, and it's just like there's so much missing. And Lester reshot stuff, and it's just very much a Lester film as you go on. Now, Lester brought the skills to do the big action scenes, but also brought the humour to do the smaller scenes. And then there was a lot of things where actors had not returned from the first film, and they'd have to use stand-ins and things as well, which could be awkward, but Lester was pretty smart about how he did it. Like, they had E.G. Marshall as the president, but they only had 1 or 2 scenes that were shot from him as a president from the first shoot. And so basically, Lester had him as a shadowy figure in the first half of the film, had him come out and do his scenes, and then pushed him back into the shadow at the end when they didn't have him back to shoot the rest of the stuff. So there was a lot of cleverness there, and it was also an experience to understanding that, okay, this is a limitation, how do we work around it? They had to have stand-in for Gene Hackman at times where they'd shot half a sequence in the Fortress of Solitude for the ending, and they'd go and shoot the other half, and there's bits and bobs of things, so they were just shooting Hackman out of the film, so they just shot his stuff in the Fortress of Solitude, and then they'd come back to do the rest. They'd have to do it without Hackman, which they'd have to do anyway, even if Donner was doing the film. But it's because they'd have to have Hackman again. Even Hackman come back to do the rest of it, who knows what they'd use him for. But they actually work around all these problems, and you still have the essential sense of it's a simple story of a character trying to figure out where they exist in this world. And it's basically Superman. He's got powers. He wants love, but he can't have that if he wants responsibility and helping the people. And it's like he has to choose. He has to make mistakes. It's a very human story of someone making mistakes and pulling himself back up and discovering their purpose, even if the purpose is something painful for them. That it means he can't be with Lois because he has this responsibility to be Superman. And it's a wonderful film for that. It's just like there's an emotional core to that works really well. You've also got the action core of these supervillains, and they mean what they say. They're here to take over the world, and they will kill. They realise early on that Superman's a weakness for protecting people, so they know they will just kill people to mess with him. So he's got formidable opponents. He has to be clever in how to defeat them rather than just bang, 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 and using violence. So it's a film that's like, use your brain, don't have to just use violence. I mean, there are flaws, and there's a subplot of Donner shot that's in the film where in the first half is where Clark Kent realises he doesn't have his powers anymore when he fights against this trucker who beats him up, and it's a really good scene. And then there's another scene at the end where he comes back and beats up the trucker as Superman it just feels mean, and it just feels like it's you don't need this in the film like at all. It's just Superman being a dick, and it's I don't know why they put it back in. It just like you don't need this. You've already made your point about how good he is. Now you're just doing a joke. So the stuff like that still don't. It's just a few little bits and bobs that don't quite work. But it is a wonderful film, and it just has. For a long time, this was one of the great superhero films. I mean, people were like, "Is it one or two? What one's the best one?" And you have different people. Some people think it's one, and some, like me, think it's two. Donna never come back. Richard Lester directed Superman 3. I think he was kind of over it by that point. It kind of it was something to do while he was trying to get other films made that he wanted to make. And I don't think his heart was in it. They didn't have that great a plot, but there's some nice moments in it. They had nice moments with Superman Smallville and reconnecting with Lang Lang, and then there's evil Superman when he gets corrupted and he has to get rid of the evil side of him. And there's some nice stuff with Robert Vaughn, just and his lackeys as how the megalomaniacs, supervillains and things. There's some nice moments, but the actual central plot with Richard Pryor and his mega machine and things are kind of just come across as a bit silly. And you get that feeling as like they shoehorned Richard Pryor into this film and everyone knows it, and it's like, well, then Lester tried to make that work, but it just unbalanced the film. I think he was under orders with Salkins to actually do that, so it was like, well, it's kind of what happens with Spider-Man 3 with Sam Raimi had Venom to deal with, and it's like, for all the nice stuff that's in the film, the stuff that doesn't work, like the bit the director didn't want, or the bit the director was forced to work with, is kind of the thing that's messing it up. So it's more of a flawed film than a bad one. It's just like, it made everyone think, oh, everyone was definitely Donner. And it's like, not really. If you know Lester's films, you see Superman 2, there's a hell of a lot with Lester. And even you go back and look at who shot what, so much of it is Lester. It had to have been, they shot a certain amount when they did the first one, but not all of it was good. And that's the thing, if you do back to back, Peter Jackson, when he did Lord of the Rings, he went back and did reshoots and things of things they got wrong or things they need to add to it. Because if you're doing something this big, you're going to get stuff wrong. And you're going to see, oh, I made a mistake there, I need to do this way rather than that way. It's just the way films are made. And if you look at the Donner cut, it's pretty awful. It really is. There's lots of stuff in there that is taken from like test footage, like rehearsal stuff, and there's so much brought in from the Lester cut as well. They had to use the Lester cut because Lester shot a lot, and all they did was cut the jokes out and made it really serious, which just adds to the sense of this film's a bit depressing. And it's like, well, they're just going to do the depressing second film, the dark second film that's not that much fun. It's just like, I don't know what they wouldn't do, but I know the Donner cut is just not very good. Everyone's tried to loot themselves and think it's good. It's not. It's a DVD extra. That's all it is. There was not enough of his stuff there to shoot. Although the big selling point was, we had Brando back for the scenes he shot for the second film. And it's like, well, yeah, but in the theatrical cut you have his mother doing all this stuff. Now, what's better with the mother doing the stuff in the second part, which is about his emotional side and how his emotions tie into his responsibilities, and that creates a much more emotional side to the film, which I think in the Donner thing it's a bit cold. So I just have no patience for everyone just says it's a Donner Superman's 1 and 2, and it's like, no, it's not. It's really not. It's one, you're doing an auteur with someone who was a paid employee who was brought in to do the film and brought stuff to it, but it could get done without him. And he was doing a film that everyone agreed upon. It was like, this is the tone we need to go for. Sometimes you have to fight them for this or that, but he brought stuff, but he also was working within limitations, as Lester was. And it's like, it's not an auteur film. Donner was not an auteur director. he went from job to job, and we used to look at lots of films in the 80s. They're very piecemeal. If he's not a strong producer, he's very script dependent. If he got something like the Lethal Weapon, it was a good film. Then you look at the Lethal Weapons as they go on. They're not good films. The only good one after number one is the second one, which is has a lot of problems, but it sticks to the Shane Black template because he wrote the first draft. And then after that, the scripts are terrible. When you look at Scrooge does not hold up very well. The Goonies is really loud and obnoxious. It's just, he made The Toy, which was notoriously awful, with Richard Pryor. A film that was hated much more than Superman 3. It's like this whole thing, it was a Donner thing, and it's like, nah, it's like, he did some good things, that's it. But there's other stuff going on there, and Richard Lester was always a better director. It's that thing, it was one of those rare occasions where a director was replaced with someone better than him. So, I'm sure some people will disagree, I don't care if I'm right. So Superman 2 was a big thing in my memory. It was a film that probably got me interested in Richard Lester. Because later on I saw that film, The Four Musketeers. I was like, oh, I understand, I know that style, and then it's like, it's when we started to realise there was a director involved. Directors do things, and you can recognise their habits. So, there we go, that's my first, that's what a director does, movies. Even though I didn't know at the time, but it was like one of the things that you just click and you'd see it, just the way it was done. So I hope you enjoyed this video. It went way longer than expected, but there you go. So that's me for now. Right, bye.